And looks like we're getting set up. I really love the way StreamYard, you know when you're live. Okay, I think we're live now. Let's
Okay.
hope we're live. I'm just going to check on Jane Hogan Health Facebook page to make sure. Yes, looks like we're live. Perfect. If you ever wondered about essential oils and thought that they were just about smelling nice, you got a few things to learn today, because I have expert Jodi Cohen, who's the founder, CEO of Vibrant Blue Oils, on to talk to me today. So I'm Jane Hogan, the wellness engineer, and this show, Wellness by Design, is all about creating a life of wellness with intention. It's about intentional living, because we can create a life of wellness when we live intentionally. We design the life that we want based on what our body needs. All righty. So Jodi Cohen, welcome to Wellness by Design. So excited to have you here today.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for including me. I'm really excited to talk to your community about oils and anything else that might be on their mind.
Yeah, well, my community is mostly people who have some pain and inflammation, and they might not never have thought that
Yeah.
essential oils could help with that. But I know, like on your website, vibrantblueoils.com, which is an absolutely beautiful site. Like aesthetically, the colors and the flowers and everything are so nice. But I love the way on your site you've got all these different blends for specific needs. So you've got one specifically like for brain balance, and we'll talk about your book, because you got a book coming out
Yeah.
soon. So we'll talk about that afterwards. But you've got ones for blends that are for detox, for digestion, for hormone balance, for inflammation and gut repair, for mood and hormone balance, for sleep, and for stress and adrenal support. So I love the way you've got those. So it's like people can just go right to the oils that are right for whatever their needs are.
Yeah. There's
So
symptoms. Yeah.
yeah, tell me a little bit about your background and what brought you into this.
Yeah. My background, I got into health through my second child. He my first kid was really easy, and I just erroneously assumed I was a great mom. Had another one 22 months later who was a tiny terror. He was just off and running all the time. And I read every parenting book I could find. Nothing seemed to help. One of them said, like, cue your nose, like, look at my nose. And he was all over the place. And then one day we were with a bunch of families at the zoo, and my friend complimented how well behaved Max was being that day. And within moments, another mother handed out crackers, Ritz crackers, and Max literally Jekyll Hyded and took off running. And,
Wow.
after I ran after him, brought him back, my friend said, "Oh my goodness, I never saw him Jekyll Hyde like that in response to food. My brother was on Ritalin his whole life, and it turns out he was just allergic to weird foods. You should take him to a nutritionist." And I thought, I can do that. I've done everything else. We took him to a nutritionist. He said, take him off soy, corn, and dairy. We did. And the next day he could look at our nose. And I thought, this is crazy. I have been banging my head against the wall since he's been
Wow.
born, and it's food. So I went back and got a degree in nutrition and was trying to help other moms with wiggly kids. It's really hard to assess a wiggly kid because they're all over the place. So I
Yeah.
learned this really helpful technique called muscle testing that played a role in how I developed the oils. And it's just a really easy way to kind of test the frequency of things so that you can
Mhm.
figure out what balances it. So
Can you
flash,
walk people through that muscle testing? Because I know I only heard of muscle testing myself maybe a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And I think a lot of people, maybe in my audience, have not heard of it. So can you just go over muscle testing a little bit?
yeah, it's basically this idea that, think of us as being computers, right? And there's a lot of data in our field, and it's not just our body, but we have kind of energetic layers that
Yep.
come out, and that's where certain things like emotions hang out. And the more they hang out in the field, the more they kind of get into our body and create congestion and blocks and impede our health. So the basic idea is that when your body is in balance, it works properly and everything heals. Like inflammation is a good example. because when one of your main nerves, your vagus nerve, is signaling, it releases the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which calms inflammation. So inflammation can come from a lot of root causes, and the basic idea is when you calm stress so that the right chemicals are released, when you get your nervous system in balance so that signals are properly sent and received, when you eliminate toxins that might be triggering the immune system and inflammation, then you can function well, right? So what you're trying to do is figure out what's the main obstacle. Like most people come to me and they're like, everything's wrong with me. Well, you can't start with everything. You
Right.
have to really prioritize. And sometimes, like, sleep is a great example. If you're not sleeping, you're going to have a lot of symptoms. Once we kind of fix the sleep, a lot of those symptoms will drop off the list. And so
Right.
instead of thinking that you have 20 things to chase, you suddenly have four, you know? So what muscle testing does is it allows you to kind of communicate directly with the person's body, not like, their spirit guide or something super weird, but their body. It's a way to kind of tap into that information, that blueprint of information, and ask questions. And they're
Mm.
usually kind of yes, no questions. And
Yeah.
part of the brilliance of it is kind of figuring out what questions do you ask in what order. And so there's a practitioner by the name of Dietrich Klinghardt who developed a technique called autonomic response testing, ART. And he really kind of crystallized the most efficient, easy way to kind of test the body. And you can test the body. It's not how you test it is kind of not the most important facet. Like a lot of people have you raise your arm and they press on their arm.
Yes.
Some people use a surrogate, which means that they'll have an assistant like touch your stomach and they'll press on their arm. Some people use devices. Some people use their fingers. If you're trying to kind of just open yourself up to how you test things, you can use your body as a pendulum. You can go to the supermarket and like touch, like coffee is a great example. I go hot and cold with coffee. There are days when I really can't have it and days when it's fine. So I just every morning before I make it, like, is it okay for me today? And if I lean forward, that's a yes. If I lean back, that's a no. It's
Yeah.
what pendulums are doing, but it's basically an efficient technique to there when we go to the doctor, right, they have us stick out their tongue, they're looking for something, they take our pulse, they take our heartbeat as we're breathing in and breathing out. All of the things that they're doing where they're touching our body, they're really just trying to gather information to kind of make the next best recommendation. So this is just kind of a more non-invasive way to
Mm.
gather that same information so that you can then make your next best
Mm.
recommendation.
Jodi, so many great things there. First of all, the fact that you're a mother, and it's like how motivated we are to find solutions for our near and dear loved ones, right? So especially as mothers, our children. So I totally get how you got into that. And this whole tool of muscle testing, a lot of people might think that it sounds sort of, witchy woo woo kind of thing, but there is science behind this. And I love the way you brought it back to that we have these other energies around us that can be measured now
Well, and
outside of us.
as a mother, when something works, you're like, I'm keeping that. Like, I'll never forget, we live near a beach, and it used to drive me bananas that, you'd go to the beach and then they'd get sand all over everything. When my friend taught me baby powder gets sand off of the hands, the feet, I was like, that's brilliant. And it works because you see it works. So you just keep the baby powder in your trunk and you never have that problem again. It's that kind of thing. Like, yes, you can read the books, you can take all the right medicine, but sometimes it's just someone telling you like, hey, here's this little tweak that worked for me. And you're like, brilliant. So
Yeah.
that's what I really kind of go towards, just because, at that time I had two kids, I had a depressed husband, I had a full-time job, I was like Uber volunteer, and then
Yes.
the bottom kind of crashed out. My husband, it got to the point where it became clear that he might die on my watch and I needed to get him more help. So we moved him to a residential treatment facility. And once I knew he was safe and it wasn't my job to keep him safe, my adrenals like fully collapsed. I had zero energy because I had been, I'd been so stressed for so long.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't very convenient. The kids were 5 and 7. I was suddenly a single mom. I would get up with them, make them breakfast, pack their lunch, check their homework, get them to school, come home, crawl back into bed, and set the alarm for 10 minutes before pickup. And that was pretty much all I could handle. And I
Wow.
kept trying. I knew it was my adrenals. I knew what remedies I should be taking. I was like taking all the right supplements and nothing was helping. And fortunately, because I was Uber volunteer, I had helped a friend with an event and she was very into oils and she had planned to give me this big box of oils as a thank you. And when she came over to drop them off, she said, you've been so hyper cortisol for so long, and we know cortisol contributes to inflammation. I bet your gut is such toast that nothing you're ingesting is actually getting into your system. Oils are cool because they can, go through the skin, like
Yeah.
nicotine patches or hormonal cream, or you can smell them. That might be another way to kind of balance your body. And when she said that, a light bulb really went off, and I thought, okay, that makes sense to me. So I used my muscle testing, and normally I wean it down to like one remedy, but I couldn't wean it down past 5, and that felt confusing to me at first. And then it occurred to me, oh, they're liquid. I can combine them. So I went into the kitchen, new to oils, grabbed a shot glass, and tested each one, put them on my low back, and felt like myself for the first time in weeks. Like my first thought was, oh my God, I can go running, which was always my default whenever I was kind of in a funk. But when walking up the stairs feels exhausting, going on a
You're not going
3-mile
for a
run was
run.
not really in the cards. But
Yeah.
I went running, I showered, I went to the supermarket, I made their favorite meal, I cleaned the whole house, I did all the laundry, I put it away. It was like being me again. And, that night when I was lying in bed, often, stress kind of ties in with insomnia. And I usually really struggled to fall asleep. I would get the kids to sleep and then clock watch, oh, 10:05, oh, 10:12, and like kind of hope that maybe I would fall asleep before 3 in the morning. Um, but it occurred to me like, oh, I wonder if I know this is my pineal gland that's not releasing melatonin because I have too much cortisol in my system. I wonder if I can make an oil blend that will help with that. And I knew just from working in nutrition that like the area, the skin right above the ears is really
Okay.
thin. And that's really pretty level with your pineal gland, which releases melatonin in response to darkness unless there's stress, which is kind
Right.
of right in the middle of the brain. So anyway, I formulated something again, put it on kind of above my ears. Then I didn't want to put it on my forehead, but I was like, maybe I'll put it on the back of the head and the top of the head. The goal was really to get it into the center where the pineal gland is. And I fell asleep immediately, like best sleep I'd had probably in years. And I thought, okay, that was a win. And it was that kind of thing where I just kept having positive experiences. So I just kept making more things. And also, I'd been working in clinical practice for long enough that I knew the blind spots. Like I knew lymph movement was hard. I knew gallbladder congestion was hard. I kind of had this working list of like, these are the hard to reach areas. So anyway, when I started to feel better, all my friends were like, that's so cool. Can I try it? Oh, it works on me, it works on my clients. And so finally I went online because I thought someone else must be doing this. Like, I don't need to be the, Mary Kay party for all my friends. And I was really surprised that no one was really looking at oils through the lens of physiology. And the way they explained it made it so incredibly complicated that I was almost grateful that my mental capacity was zilch, because if I had started with research, I would have felt unqualified and never done it.
Wow. So this whole thing led you to trusting, well, knowing that it worked through your
Yeah.
son and for yourself,
Yeah.
trusting yourself to use the muscle testing to figure out what you needed in on that at that particular moment.
Well, desperation is the mother of invention. I
Yes.
think that when we're so desperate that we'll try anything, like the whole all the doubt and concern goes away because you just need something.
Yeah, yeah, when you get to that point with rock bottom. So, all right, so you've got these different blends that for different purposes. So, knowing that, and you talked. This is interesting. You mentioned like putting it on your low back, which I've never heard of before,
For
and a
the
lot of
adrenal glands, yeah. So
okay, so where the
the
adrenal glands
adrenals
are.
sit on top of the kidneys. The kidneys are
Yeah,
about the size of your fist, and this is where the adrenals would be. And the
Right.
kidneys line up with the bottom of the kidney with the bottom rib, the 12th rib. So if you put your hand
Okay.
behind your back on
Yep.
kind of that bottom rib, that's where your adrenals are. They're just more accessible through the back of the body.
Okay. Interesting. And that spot that you talked about here as well is not.
Yeah, so that would be where I
Yeah.
put our adrenal blend. This is where I put our circadian blend. But for inflammation, the most interesting thing that no one talks about, our body has an operating system,
Yes.
and that is our autonomic nervous system, and it
Yeah.
controls our automatic functions, our breathing, our heart rate, our digestion, our detoxification, our immune system, and then the amount of inflammatory chemicals that are in our system, right?
Right.
And it's designed to keep us alive, and it has obviously the steady state, but then it has, if there's an emergency, they always use the example of a tiger chasing you. I don't see many tigers chasing people down the street, but I do see them, worried with anticipatory stress. Are my
Yeah.
finances okay? Is my health okay? Are my relationships okay?
We have
What's going
a
on?
world
And
pandemic right now.
yeah, yeah. And people don't realize that anticipatory thought driven stress triggers the same chemical cascade as actual physical stress, because
Yeah.
anticipatory stress keeps us alive. If your village burned down because of a fire and you smell fire, you're going to know, oh no, I better sprout into action so I can save the village.
Yeah.
So same kind of thing. And that kind of danger survival response is called your sympathetic state. And what happens when you sense any kind of physical, mental, emotional danger is that your body kind of shifts gears, quite literally. So certain chemicals are released, certain resources like blood and oxygen flow are routed away from your organs of digestion towards your arms and your legs. Your heart rate speeds up. Inflammation is kind of down regulated. In the beginning, it stops inflammation, because if you're spraining your ankle while you're running, you could die. But over time, that signal gets weaker and weaker, and inflammation starts to run rampant.
Yes.
So and then the kind of danger has passed. I'm healing. Inflammation can now calm down. Everything can kind of get back to normal. That's known as the parasympathetic branch of the nervous system. The on-off switch between these two systems is the most important nerve in your body that most people have never heard of. It's
Yep.
called your vagus nerve. It's cranial nerve number 10. Quick anatomy lesson: starts at the back of the head, splits, winds around both sides behind the ear here on. If you feel behind your ear, that's your
Yep.
mastoid bone. And that's important because that's kind of a critical point to stimulate it. It's where the vagus nerve is the most accessible to the surface and also the thickest. It then winds through and nervates your throat, your mouth, your larynx, your heart, your stomach, your gallbladder, your liver, your pancreas, all of your intestines. And what's interesting is, think of like a gear shift on a bike. Anytime you stimulate any of the organs that are innervated by the vagus nerve, like the lungs, deep breathing. You feel better after yoga than you do at the beginning, because you've been breathing throughout and you've been turning on your parasympathetic nervous system by stimulating your vagus nerve. There are a lot of ways. There's a practitioner that I admire, Datis Karazian, who has been kind
I
of
love his
screaming
work.
into the wind forever. And he talks a lot about, using a tongue depressor to gag yourself,
Yeah.
or
Gargle.
gargling, or frightening yourself, or splashing your face with freezing water. Shockingly, there's very low compliance when you make it like that unpleasant and difficult. But there
Yeah.
was a researcher, a neuroscientist out of New York by the name of Kevin Tracy, that in 2012, right when my company was getting started, he discovered that implanting a pacemaker-like electrical device right here behind the earlobe on the mastoid bone, and actually giving an electric stimulation activated the vagus nerve. And that technology has actually been approved by the FDA for depression, epilepsy, and migraines. Kind of recognizing, when I started playing with oils, how they were not only super small and fat soluble, so they could get through the skin really quickly and actually pass the blood-brain barrier, which is super small and fat soluble, but they could also be used. There's a whole branch of acupuncture that uses stimulatory oils like acupuncture needles because they basically stimulate that energy. So I started knowing that, playing with like what combination, because blends work better. I'll just be honest. Everyone loves lavender, frankincense, peppermint. They're great. It's kind of like you might like peanut butter, but when you combine it with jelly and put it in a sandwich, it's different. So when you combine clove and lime, which is the ingredients in my parasympathetic blend, you get super stimulatory and super small molecules. Then you add in carrier oil. What people don't realize, carrier oil are just regular household oils. It can be olive oil, coconut oil, jojoba, anything you have in the house, and they call it diluting. And what they don't realize is that diluting allows it to kind of cover a larger surface, but it also either fractionated coconut oil makes it get into the system really quick, like a quick hit, like you're having your worst PMS day, you want that Advil to kick in ASAP,
Wow.
and then jojoba is more like a slow time release, kind of delaying things getting in. So you can use oils in very strategic ways. So anyway, this combination of clove and lime applied right behind the earlobe on the mastoid bone works like that electrical stimulation. It activates the vagus nerve to shift you into parasympathetic, and also activating the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is what releases the anti-inflammatory neurotransmitter acetylcholine. So what people don't always realize is inflammation is a whole body response, right? And some of the signals from the body are what trigger that inflammation. So if you can rewrite the code, so to speak, and send the signal, body calm down from inflammation, you can have a pretty immediate effect. Kind of
Jodi,
inflammatory hack.
love all that. That's so interesting about the carrier oils. I hadn't heard about that before, that even the carrier oil can change the how you're affected by the essential oils.
Yeah, I know
Wow.
people don't, it's so it on some level it's so sad because what people are kind of talking about is so super basic, and oils can be used in really exceptional ways to expedite your healing, which is actually the whole reason I wrote this book. Like the joke, my son Max actually wound up dying in a car accident when he was 12, but when he was alive, one of our things was we would go to bookstores. He was a voracious reader, and so I'd let he and his sister pick the book, and then they'd kind of, they'd usually have like 4, and I'm like, why don't you try to narrow it down to like 2? So they'd be kind of reading to figure out which one they wanted, and I'd be scouring the health shelves for essential oil books, and every time I'd come up empty-handed. And finally Max said to me, it sounds like the book you're looking for doesn't exist, so you probably need to write it. And I did. That was kind of one of the ways I chose to honor him. But what I really tried to get into in this book is the science of how essential oils work and how you can use them more efficiently. Like this idea of these HIIT workouts, right? 15-minute intense workouts that in some ways are far better than like an hour of doing a lot of things, or even the idea of intermittent fasting. There's so many ways that we can use our resources and like get more bang for our buck. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm really hoping to help people do.
I'm just going to share because I could talk to you all day, honestly. So interesting, Jodi. But I know that you've got your book is called um, Essential Oils to Boost the Brain and Heal the Body.
Yeah, it's right
5
here.
steps to calm anxiety. Yeah, it's a beautiful book. Look at that. Isn't that pretty?
Yeah, I really struggled to find a way to say nature, magic, and brain.
Oh yeah, well you did it together. I love the way they're in the shape of the brain. It's so like you get it right away.
That was my hope. Thank you.
I know that I'm just going to paste it in the comments there. You are giving like the book is available for pre-order right now.
It is, and it's so cool. Amazon, here's something I didn't know. When your book does well, they start to give it a better price. So anything, the lowest price in pre-order is like your guaranteed price. So I think right now it's $18, and it has all the recipes. And then you can also get a bunch of bonuses and free downloads to kind of help get started right away. Yeah, and I think did you add the boostthebrainbook.com /gift? That will give you
Just
a
put it in.
free, Okay, that will give you a free chapter with 25 different ways to basically activate your parasympathetic nervous system. And many of them are free, and many of them you really don't need to do all 25. Just pick one. It's kind of like
Right.
you're just reading for the one thing you're going to start to integrate into your life that's going to help calm inflammation, on the daily.
Mm. I just got to say, I want everyone to know, I did look at the website, the boostthebrainbook.com. So I've showed the gift one where they can download the free gift. But if you go to just boostthebrainbook.com and you pre-order the book, well, I think you can get a electronic copy now. Can you? Is that available yet?
I think everything releases on March 16th. And actually, it's funny, I get to record the audiobook.
Ooh,
I
exciting!
know, I know. I'm kind of, that's a new adventure for me. Boldly
But there's
going where I've never gone before.
I don't know if I can find it right now, but if you pre-order that book, there's like a free course. There's like the tons of stuff available if
Yeah,
you pre-order it.
there's a free bonus chapter, a live Q&A, a free course. We gave out our immune supporting recipes basically to
Yeah.
help people through their, cold and flu season. And then we're going to keep adding bonuses up until the actual launch. So yeah, there's a lot there's a lot of bang for the buck.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going down. I'm gonna get it right after this because
Oh, thank you.
it's amazing. And so thank you so much, Jodi, for sharing all this beautiful wealth of knowledge. I don't think I've ever talked to anyone who knows as much about essential oils as you. So it's just a beautiful gift to the world that you're sharing with everyone.
Oh my
I've
goodness,
got
thank you.
one last question that I always ask people, and that
Okay.
is what's one thing, if you could pick one thing that people could do for their health today, what would it be? Because I love this whole thing about taking action, even if it's a small step. What can they do today?
Well, I'll tell you my three favorite things. The first one is this idea of adding in joy. I read Radical Resilience, which is Kelly Turner's kind of compilation of people who cured themselves from cancer. What did they all have in common? Only
Yeah.
three things were physical. And the one I loved is like I have a timer on my phone. It goes off at 3 because that's when my daughter's done with class, and we like blast a song and sing along. We dance, we like pet our dog, like we're like, we have 3 minutes that are dedicated to just being happy because that floods your body with positive chemicals. There's
Yes.
certain oils that I love to smell. We have a small intestine blend that I think smells like heaven. So just making 3 minutes, just like have 3 minutes of something you love. It could be reading a magazine, any kind of self-indulgent pleasure.
Yeah.
So that's probably my favorite thing. My other two are
Love it.
moments of gratitude and just any kind of movement, moving your body.
Yeah. Oh, movement's so great. Thank you so much for this, Jodi. So the best place for people to find you is to go to your website, the Vibrant Blue Oils. Would that be the one?
Yes, that is perfect.
Okay.
And they can always email at info@vibrantblueoils.com if they have any questions. And then the
Yep.
book is available at all booksellers. Boost the Brain, Essential Oils to Boost the Brain and Heal the Body.
Yep. And I noticed too, when I looked at the Amazon site, it's already #1 in the new releases in aromatherapy. So congratulations
Yeah,
on that.
thank you. Yeah, no, it's exciting. I think I have an idea of how people, it feels like there's a lot of information that people have been asking about, and the beauty of being in business for 10 years is you have 10 years of questions, so you kind of have a finger to the wind of what will be helpful. And I really tried to over deliver in this book.
Mm. Thank you so much, Jodi. I'm going to stop broadcasting on Facebook, and I just wanted to say thank you so much to you. There's a couple of comments there, people saying they're really enjoying the information, and I've shared your free gift, and I've shared your website there, so people know where to find you. And so thank you so much for you. Thank you for the people watching either live on the replay, and have a wonderful day, and think about applying some of these things that Jodi talked about. It's just a real wonderful way to help bring down inflammation. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I think it's the easiest thing you can do.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, bye.
Bye.